Welcome to Leaders of the Built World, a video series where we sit down with workplace leaders to share their stories, insights, and perspectives on how the spaces we create shape the way we work. In each episode, we'll explore the ideas, challenges, and innovations driving the future of the built world. My name is Karen Bucks, and I'll be your host.
The built world means to me the places, the people, the operations, and the assets that enable work to work.
Today, we're joined by Erin Mulligan Helgren, CEO of OfficeSpace Software, who will share her perspective on how data and AI are transforming the built world. Okay, let's jump in. So, from your perspective, what kind of pressure are workplace leaders and executives facing today?
So we're seeing something that has been so different than many workplace leaders ever had to manage in their lives, which is the ambiguity and uncertainty about who actually is going to come to work and when they're going to come to work and what kind of space they're going to need. And as we've seen both the advent of hybrid work and return to office fully, it's creating all sorts of pressure and reimagination of what those workspaces look like, when they're available, how they're built out, and who gets to use them and when. So there's just a whole new set of requirements, demands, and metrics. The other thing that's really different is 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I don't think employee experience was something that anybody even spoke about. And now the employee experience is hugely impacted by the built world and by where people do their work. If you show up at work and you can't find a space, if you can't find a space that has the things in it that you need, if you're not seated by your team, if the people that you need to work with actually didn't come in that day and you're Zooming from your physical space, that's not good for the employee experience. And so there's a whole new set of capabilities and requirements that they need to think about that are really impacting the way that people are engaging in their space and ultimately the way that work is going to happen.
We always hear that the built world is flush with data, but CEOs and workplace leaders are unsure what to measure. So from your perspective, what metrics should these workplace leaders be looking at to evaluate their workplace strategy?
Well, given the fact that real estate is typically the second most expensive item in a CEO's P&L, they're obviously wondering, am I getting value out of all of the space that I have? Do I have the right space? Is it in the right place? Is it being utilized in the right way? I think secondarily, they're looking at how is that space being utilized and is it actually helping me be more productive and impactful as an organization? And then I think thirdly, they're looking at things like employee experience. So how are people feeling about their work they're doing and how they're doing it and where they're doing it? And when you think about those three things, the cost, the utilization, and the employee experience inside of it, they're trying to figure out, again, do I have the right places, in the right spaces, with the right people using them at the right time? It's actually a pretty complex set of questions that they're answering.
This talk of metrics segues perfectly into this concept of the built world experience gap that many workplace leaders are facing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. The built world experience gap is actually that gap in value between what employers are investing in real estate and what they're actually receiving as a result. And I think where you can see it most cleanly nowadays is when you look at things like occupancy rates. And so on average, we've seen post-pandemic that occupancy rates have fallen significantly. And think about all the times that you've walked into an office and you look around and it's half empty. And so that to me is a huge opportunity for creating value by having the right amount of space. I think the second piece around the built world gap is around employee productivity. When employees are actually spending time commuting, coming into the office, it needs to be worth that commute. If they show up and they can't find a desk, or if they can't find their teams, or if they don't have the assets they need like printers or projectors, that causes a huge impact not only in productivity, but in experience and happiness. And as a CEO, what I know I don't want is a lot of unproductive, unhappy employees. And so I think it can manifest in a lot of ways. It's the physical assets themselves, and that is the experience that people are having inside of them. Sure.
All right, one last one on measurement. So how do you think workplace measurement will change in the future?
I love the idea that we've gone from just thinking about who actually came into the office to what are they able to do when they're there. And I think one of the most important pieces of data is the whole idea of collaboration. So if I come into the office and you actually are seeing that I'm meeting with people and I'm having impromptu conversations and I'm spending time face to face, that is high quality presence. Versus if I show up in the office and I'm actually in my cube Zooming with all the people that aren't there, that is low quality presence. And so I think there's an idea that workplace leaders are going to want to think about around a body in an office isn't in and of itself the most important thing. It's how that human is actually interacting, what value they're getting out of it. And at the end of the day, that's going to mean how well they're collaborating.
All right, so let's talk tech now. Help us understand what the built world software is versus legacy industry terms such as IWMS or WEX?
So one of the things I think is interesting is historically in our category, there have been two separate categories that we operate in. One, IWMS, Integrated Workplace Management Systems, one, WEX, Workplace Experience, and they've historically been viewed as very separate things. OfficeSpace doesn't think about it that way. In fact, I can't imagine a world where you could separate out the building and the place versus the people that are inside of it. And what that causes us to think about is what the experience needs to be for the users, for the administrators, and for the leaders that integrate those things. Because in the built world, when you're making strategies come together, you're thinking about the places and the processes and the people and the assets. And you've got to think about all of those things holistically as you're building a platform, as you're building a data strategy, as you're building all of the workflows inside of it. And so when people talk to us about kind of choosing one lane or the other, I think that's kind of a crazy question because I can't imagine how you can.
Okay, great. Let's shift to AI. So with the advent of AI and agents, where do you believe workplace technology is going? And tell us about what OfficeSpace is doing about it.
I think what's interesting in the world of AI is that the concept of agentic AI really only became something we were all talking about like 2 years ago in 2024. And so we are in very, very early innings about the possibilities that it's creating for us. However, OfficeSpace has been on the forefront and will continue to be. In fact, in 2026, we are introducing a first-of-its-kind agentic capability that's going to transform the way that space planning works. And I think what's going to be really exciting is knowing that we're on kind of the leading edge, knowing that we are constantly looking across the horizon to figure out what can come next. I think the next few innings are going to come pretty fast. And I think over the course of the next couple years, we will be looking at a completely reimagined way that space planners do their work and that we're able to drive impact for all of our clients.
So with that, what makes OfficeSpace's AI model unique?
Well, what makes OfficeSpace's AI different is three things. Number one, it is years and years of proprietary data from all of our clients. It's anonymized. Number two, it is proprietary models that we've built. So unlike a lot of companies where you'll hear them talk about their AI capability, what that is just a wraparound to LLMs that are publicly available. And then the third is experts that help us analyze the data, build the model, and experts that are also sure that we can deliver and scale it with security and confidence and scalability and impact.
All right, final one. Where is OfficeSpace going next?
So as we're thinking about our platform strategy, we've obviously come from a place of strength with workplace capabilities for 20 years. Just a couple of years ago, we introduced visitor management as another capability. Just last year, we introduced assets management as a capability. Now we're introducing AI Canvas that actually helps superpower all of those things. As we think about the future, we're continuing to evaluate what it is that CEOs and workplace leaders need to optimize their built world. And so that makes us think about things like lease management and capital planning and ESG management and capability. So you can count on OfficeSpace for being the place where you can manage everything inside of your built world to truly drive optimization and impact in your organization.